Hello, welcome back. All right, so now onto the windows. As you see here, I did one of the side windows. Specifically, this is the one for the kitchen, and I'll show you next how I made these up. Okay, for the main outer casing of the windows, I am using these bass wood strips. This is 1/16 inch by 3/16 inch, and I'm cutting them down to size to fit the window. So using these, I took my calipers and I measured the inside measurements of all four windows here in the front and the height and the width. I took whatever was the smallest diameter, since they're off by like a millimeter or half a millimeter here and there, and I used that to cut down the strip of wood to size using the miter box that I showed you before. So to cut them to size, I measured out here, used it and made a stopper. This is my stopper for the vertical size, which is 13.5 millimeters wide. So I can just slide the stock and then just cut it to size and just repeat that for the numbers that I needed. So each window outer casing comprised of 5 pieces, 2 horizontals, 2 verticals on either side, and 1 vertical in the middle to give me that divided look, as if there were 2 windows. And then I'll go in and add in the other pieces, and I'll show you that as I do that. Now, the way that I'm going to glue these is similar to how I did it before, using a little bit of my Lego sets. I'm going to glue the right angles. So I'm going to apply a bit of glue to the edge, glue one right angle as such. This way they're right, they're upright, and they're 90 degrees. Let that set for a bit, and then I'll do the other corner, and I'll be back. Alright, so after waiting for about half an hour for the glue to set up enough so I can handle these, now it's time to glue the 2 corners together. And after that's set, I will place the middle part here. So same thing as before, put a bit of glue there, and using the Lego blocks as my right angle, I'll set these up so I have a good right angle there. And I'll take another Lego piece, put it here to form the other right angle, and I should have a pretty good square there. Alright, so I'll be back. Okay, so a half hour after letting this dry enough to be handled, now we're ready to add in the metal divider here. If we take a quick look here, you see there's a little black tick mark, and that's the middle part. So what I do is just add a little bit of glue to either end and slide it in and make sure it's all lined up as such. Adjust it accordingly, and then let it dry, and then we'll go up to the next step. Okay, so after letting the glue sufficiently dry, I came back to this with a sanding stick and cleaned up any glue oozed out on the edges here. So using one of these skinny sticks, I did the inside, and using one of the larger broad sticks, I did the outside. Anywhere where there's a joint there, glue might have oozed out. And after that, my next step is to paint them. Now the ones here for the kitchen area, I painted the insides here in white, as you see here. So this is going to be the inside facing in. And then for the storage unit, those 2 windows, I put on a little bit of that black brown wash on the inside of the wood. Alright, so the next step is adding the actual glass. So for the glass, what I'm using is just this transparent plastic packaging from any packaging that you might get at the store. This is what I used for the other 2 windows on the sides. I already cut it out. So this is just being adhered with a little bit of super glue around the edges here, and then just in one step placing it down and letting that set for a few minutes, and then come back and cut out the piece. So I'll be back with that. Okay, so after letting the glue dry and set for a few minutes, I trimmed these out. And after I cut them out, I just use a little sanding stick to sand down any little burrs or a little extra material around the edges. Now the next step Now, if all I wanted were windows that look like this, I could just leave it like this and attach them to the edifice. But since I'm doing the divided light, I'm going to be applying on the other side, where you see the plastic applied, these little thin strips that I cut. I'll show you here. So these are approximately 1mm strips that I cut out of the balsa wood. I pre-painted them white. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue them along the edges. Now for the top and bottom, I'm going to glue them with the super glue. Make sure they're nice and adhere to the plastic. Trim off, and then I'll come in with regular white glue, put in the verticals, and then put in the dividers in the middle. And I'll show you that. Okay, apologies, I'm doing a lot of the work off screen, off camera. It just makes it easier without having the camera here right in front of me. So as you see, I applied and glued on this one strip. So I'm going to let this dry for a couple of minutes, and then trim it off, and take the excess, and do the same thing with a little bit of super glue, and glue it along this edge. And then I'll come back and show you how I'm doing the verticals. Okay, now that I've super glued the top and bottom rails, all the vertical rails, I am going to glue that with just regular white glue. Reason being, gives me some time to adjust them to position. So I'm going to be measuring the exact size like this, marking it to the point and cutting it. And I'm going to do 5 of them. One here, one in the middle, one there, and then one each in the middle. And I'll come in and fill it in the middle. So I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so after letting the glue sufficiently dry, I'm about to now put the middle part here. So same thing as before. I'm just gonna visually measure it, cut it, and do that for all 4 pieces and line them up. Now the vertical pieces are lined up visually, and I'll do the same thing with the horizontal pieces. So I'll be back showing you that. Okay, so here's the almost finished window here. So last step here is just to do a little bit of cleanup of that white glue smear you see there. Touch up any of the white paint, any sanding of any little protrusions or anything like that. Before we get to install it in the window, in the window frame, the window hole. So next, let me just do all that process again 3 times for the other 3 windows. Okay, so here we are. I've installed the windows here for the kitchen area, and I've panned over here to my left to where the storage room is. I've installed one, and I have one to install. Now, unfortunately, I must have mismeasured the height of this windows when I was cutting it by like 1/2 millimeter, or on the little plastic miter box that I showed you earlier. It's possible that I was cutting it this part here, the stopper, whatever you use for the stopper, slipped slightly, and just that fraction of a millimeter, such that the windows are a little too high to fit in these slots. So what I had to do was break out the standing stick, wet it down so I don't have too much dust out. So this is a little wet sanding stick. You see all some of the powder on it, and sand down that 1/2 millimeter or so to make the windows fit. I also needed to do a little bit of trimming along the edges here as well to make it slide in. Alright, so I'm going to do that off camera, so easier without the camera in front of me, and I'll be back and show you all the windows in place. Alright, so a few minutes later, I'll sanded the opening a little bit to get the window in there and slid it nice and tight. So actually these windows are not even glued in, they're just being held there strictly by friction. Now there is a little bit of a gap, I don't know if it picks up on camera on some of these windows, and I can just fill that in later. Even though I think later on I'm going to put some shutters either side of the windows, so you can see that gap anyway. Alright, so I think this does it for this update. Next I'm going to work on the interior window framing, just to do the trim and clean that up, and have a little work remaining on the basement cellar here before we move on to the framing of the first floor. Alright, thank you all for watching. Take care.